The colony ship drifted through the darkness of space like a dying whale. Inside the Wandering Hope, Captain Maria Chen stared at the red warning lights that covered every screen on the bridge. The main drive was dead. The backup systems had failed 3 hours ago. Now the life support was counting down its final days. 50,000 people floated in the massive ship. Families who had sold everything they owned for a chance at a new world. Children who had never seen Earth, born in transit and dreaming of the colony world they would never reach. Old people who had given up their comfortable lives for one last adventure. Now they would all die together in the cold black between the stars. "Send the distress call again," Maria said. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. She had been a captain for 20 years. She had trained for disasters, but nothing prepared you to watch 50,000 people slowly suffocate. "Captain, we're in the outer reaches," her communications officer said. His name was David, and he had a daughter sleeping in the family quarters. She was 6 years old. "No one comes out here. The big species say it's too dangerous. Pirates and raiders control this space. Send it anyway." They sent the distress call every hour. It screamed into the void, carrying the hope that anyone would hear, that someone would care. 3 days passed. The oxygen levels dropped. People started gathering in the main halls, holding each other. Some prayed, some sang. Some just sat quietly holding their children. Maria walked among them, trying to give comfort she didn't feel. Trying to be strong when everything inside her was breaking. On the 4th day, the sensors picked up a ship. It was not a human ship. The design was strange, organic-looking, with curves instead of hard angles. It moved slowly, carefully, like it was very old. When it got closer, Maria could see it was covered in repairs and patches. This ship had seen better days. "They're hailing us," David said. His voice cracked with sudden hope. The screen flickered to life. The alien that appeared was like nothing Maria had ever seen. It looked like a massive praying mantis, but with 6 arms and eyes that seemed too wise, too sad. Its shell was a deep green that faded to gold at the edges. Behind it, Maria could see more of them moving around their ship. "I am Shivara," the alien said. The translation came through clearly, her voice like wind through leaves. "We are the Kishari. We received your distress call." "Please," Maria said, and she was not ashamed that tears ran down her face. "We have 50,000 people, children, families. Our life support is failing. We need help." Shivara's eyes closed for a long moment. When they opened, there was something like pain in them. "We are not a rich people anymore. We are not a strong people, but we will help you." Over the next 6 days, the Kishari did something that made no sense to anyone watching. They transferred their own supplies to the Wandering Hope. Food that their own colonies needed. Fuel that was worth more than gold in the outer reaches. Medical supplies they could not easily replace. Parts for the engines that took their own engineers 4 days of constant work to install. Other ships passed through the area. A Zorath merchant vessel watched from a distance. Its captain sent a message to the Kishari. "You are fools. Humans are dangerous. They breed fast and fight hard. You give them resources and they will take more. This is known." Shivara responded simply. "All life deserves a chance to become what it might be." The Zorath ship left, shaking its metaphorical head at such stupidity. Maria spent those 6 days learning about the Kishari. They were an old species, one of the first to reach the stars. 10,000 years ago, they had controlled 100 worlds. They had been philosophers, artists, scientists. They had never conquered anyone. They had never taken what was not theirs. They simply lived and thought and created beauty. But time had not been kind to them. Their birth rate had fallen. Their colonies had slowly emptied. Now only 3 worlds remained, with barely 10 million Kishari left alive. They were a dying species, slowly fading from the galaxy. "Why?" Maria asked Shivara one evening, as they stood together looking at the repairs. "Why give so much to save us? You need these supplies for your own people." Shivara's mandibles clicked together, and what Maria had learned was a smile. "I have lived 300 years, Captain. I have seen many species. Most look at others and see resources or threats or tools. You want to know what I see when I look at your people? What? I see a mother holding her child and singing to keep the fear away. I see an old man giving his oxygen ration to a young woman because her baby needs more. I see people who hold each other when the darkness comes close. This is not common in the galaxy, Captain. Most species lost this when they reached the stars. You still have it. That is worth saving." On the 7th day, the Wandering Hope powered up its engines. The ship hummed with life again. The air was fresh and clean. The children laughed and played in the corridors. The families gathered to give thanks. Maria stood on the bridge watching the Kashari ship prepare to leave. She activated the communication channel one last time. "Elder Mother Shivara," she said, using the title she had learned. "How can we repay you? Name anything, anything at all." "There is no debt," Shivara said. "We did what was right. That is payment enough." "No," Maria said, and her voice was hard with conviction. "My people do not forget. We remember kindness. We remember mercy. We remember those who saved us when no one else would. One day, Elder Mother, if your people ever need help, we will come. No matter the distance, no matter the cost. This I swear on the lives of the 50,000 you saved today." Shivara's eyes seemed to shimmer. "Then I will carry that promise in my hearts, Captain. May your colony grow strong. May your children remember the stars." The Wandering Hope jumped to hyperspace 3 hours later. Behind them, the old Kashari ship turned slowly toward home, its supplies almost empty, its crew exhausted. The Zorath merchant vessel, still watching from the shadows, recorded everything. Its report to the Galactic Council was simple. "The Kashari have made a mistake. They have saved humans. Humans are emotional and unpredictable. This will not end well." The report was filed and forgotten. 80 years would pass before the galaxy learned just how wrong the Zorath had been. Humans were indeed emotional. Humans were indeed unpredictable. But humans were also something else. Something that the cold and calculating species of the galaxy had forgotten. Humans remembered. On every human world, in every colony, monuments were raised to Shivara and her people. The oath became sacred. "We owe the Kashari our children's children." It was taught in schools. It was carved into stone. It was written in the stars. The Kashari asked for nothing. They faded into quiet obscurity on their 3 remaining worlds, content with their fading existence, their philosophers discussing the nature of mercy and the meaning of kindness. They did not know that the humans were watching, that every human ship that passed through their space brought gifts and protection, that human traders brought them food and medicine, always refusing payment, that human colonies sent their children's artwork and letters of thanks. The Kashari had planted a seed. They did not know what terrible and beautiful flower it would bloom into. They did not know that their act of simple mercy would one day shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. But they would learn. The universe would learn. Because humanity was keeping count. And when the time came to balance the scales, the galaxy would discover that human gratitude ran as deep as human rage, and both were forces that could shatter worlds. 80 years after the Wandering Hope incident, humanity had changed. The species that had nearly lost 50,000 souls in the darkness now controlled 47 colony worlds. Human ships moved through the trade lanes with confidence. Human marines trained with an intensity that made other species nervous. Human engineers built things that lasted and weapons that worked. But humanity was still considered a mid-level power. Not weak, but not strong enough to matter in the great games of the galaxy. The Galactic Council barely listened when human ambassadors spoke. The elder races, the ones who had ruled the stars for millennia, saw humans as children playing at civilization. They did not understand that human children could be very dangerous when properly motivated. The first warnings came from the outer reaches, that lawless space where the Wandering Hope had nearly died all those years ago. Ships disappeared. Colonies went silent. At first, the Galactic Council dismissed it as the usual pirate activity. The outer reaches had always been dangerous. Then the refugees started arriving. They came in broken ships, their eyes wide with terror. They spoke of something that moved through space like a plague, something that consumed everything. They called it the Vraac Dominion, and they said it could not be stopped. The Vraac were a hive mind, a collective consciousness spread across millions of bodies. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They conquered and absorbed. Every species they defeated was broken down, its useful members integrated into the hive, its world stripped of resources. They had done this to 47 species already, and they were moving deeper into civilized space. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. The great powers discussed strategy. The Zorath hegemony, powerful and proud, offered to send observers. The Mithril Collective, ancient and wise, suggested a diplomatic mission. The Kritesh Empire, brutal but practical, said the outer reaches could be sacrificed to slow the Vraak advance. No one suggested actually fighting. Fighting was expensive. The outer reaches were not strategically important. Better to let the Vraak feed there and hope they would stop when their hunger was satisfied. Then the Vraak reached Kashari space. The 3 Kashari worlds lay in the path of the swarm. 3 quiet planets of philosophers and artists, home to barely 9 million souls. The Kashari had no weapons. Their people did not believe in violence. When the Vraak scouts arrived, the Kashari simply watched them come. In the human embassy on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Sarah Okonkwo received a message. It was from T-Siva, the current elder mother of the Kashari. Sarah had met her twice before at cultural exchanges. She remembered a gentle being who spoke of art and beauty and the nature of existence. The message was simple. We do not ask for help. We only wish to say goodbye to our friends. Sarah read it 3 times. Her hands began to shake. She walked out of her office and into the main embassy hall, where 50 human diplomats worked on trade agreements and cultural exchanges and all the boring machinery of galactic politics. Everyone stop, she said. The room went quiet. The Vraak are attacking the Kashari worlds. They are saying goodbye to us. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then every human in the room stood up. Sarah saw tears on some faces, rage on others. But every single expression carried the same message. Not them. Not the Kashari. Sarah called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. She stood before the representatives of 40 species and made her case. The Kashari had saved 50,000 human lives when no one else would help. The Kashari deserved protection. The Kashari needed the Council to act. The Zorath Chancellor listened politely. Then he said, the Kashari worlds are not strategically valuable. They have no resources we need. They have no military power to offer. The Vraak will consume them in weeks. It is regrettable, but we cannot commit forces to a losing battle for sentiment. Sentiment? Sarah's voice was very quiet. You call it sentiment? What else would you call it, Ambassador? The Kashari helped you once decades ago. That does not obligate the entire galaxy to die protecting them. Sarah looked around the chamber. Every species was nodding. They agreed with the Zorath. Of course they did. It made practical sense. It was the logical decision. It was the smart move. It was also wrong in a way that made her stomach twist. We formally request Council intervention to protect the Kashari worlds, she said. Request denied, the Chancellor said. We will send thoughts and prayers. Sarah stood very still. Then she tapped her wrist communicator. Every other human ambassador in the chamber did the same. They had been waiting for this signal. The human delegation withdraws from this session, Sarah said. We withdraw our petition. We withdraw our participation in this council. You cannot simply leave, the Chancellor said, irritated now. Watch us. Every human in the chamber stood. They walked toward the exits in perfect unison. Not running, not shouting, just leaving. The other species watched in confusion. What were the humans doing? This was political suicide. You did not just walk away from the Galactic Council. As Sarah reached the door, she turned back one last time. You want to know what we call it, Chancellor? We don't call it sentiment. We call it honor. We call it loyalty. We call it remembering who helped us when we were dying in the dark. We call it being human. Clearly, these are concepts you don't understand. She left. Behind her, the council erupted in debate. What would the humans do? Surely they were not foolish enough to fight the Vraak alone. They would be destroyed. This was madness. But in human space, something was happening that the galaxy had never seen before. On Earth, the President addressed the Global Assembly. 80 years ago, when our people were dying, the Kashari saved us. They gave us their supplies when they had little. They gave us hope when we had none. Now they are in danger and the galaxy has turned its back. I am declaring a state of generational dead honor. Every fleet, every ship, every resource. We are going to the Kashari worlds. On Mars, the military academy emptied as every student volunteered for immediate deployment. On Europa Station, the shipyards went to 24-hour production. On every human colony, from the oldest to the newest, people gathered and said the same words. We remember the wandering hope. The Vraak intercepted human communications. The overmind, the collective consciousness of trillions, felt something like amusement. Humans were emotional creatures. They were coming to die for an irrelevant species. How entertaining. The overmind sent a message on all frequencies. Come. We will consume you next. Your species will make a fine addition to the Dominion. Humanity did not respond to the Vra'ak. Instead, they broadcast a different message on every channel the galaxy could receive. To all species, you have 72 hours to evacuate all non-Vra'ak from the combat zone. After that, we are not responsible for what happens. In the Galactic Council, the delegates watched human fleet movements with growing confusion. The humans were bringing everything. Not just warships, but construction vessels, colony ships, medical frigates, even civilian transports. What were they doing? They are going to try to evacuate the Kashari, the Mithril observer said. They are going to die trying to save them, the Zorath Chancellor laughed. Let them. One fewer emotional species in the galaxy. Perhaps the next humans will be more practical. But one being watched and did not laugh. In the archives, an old Zorath merchant captain reviewed footage from 80 years ago. Footage of the Wandering Hope. Footage of a human captain making a promise. Footage of Kashari giving everything to save strangers. The old captain had been there. He had warned the Kashari they were making a mistake. Now he watched the human fleets moving and he felt something cold in his chest. Oh no, he whispered to himself. They are not going to die trying to save them. They are going to save them, and then they are going to kill everything else. He sent a message to the Chancellor. It was ignored. The Chancellor was busy laughing at human foolishness. In the Kashari worlds, Elder Mother Tusiva stood on a balcony and watched the Vra'ak ships descend from orbit. Around her, her people gathered, holding each other, singing their death songs. They had lived good lives. They had no regrets. Then her communications officer ran up, gasping for breath. Elder Mother, we're receiving a message from human ships. They're here. Tusiva looked up at the sky. Through the Vra'ak swarm, she could see something else. Human ships, hundreds of them, burning through space at speeds that should have torn them apart. They were not running away, they were running toward her world. And in the lead ship, Admiral James Chen, grandson of Captain Maria Chen of the Wandering Hope, looked at the Vra'ak fleet and felt his grandfather's memories burning in his blood. His grandmother had told him the story. How the Keshari saved them, how they gave everything. Now it was humanity's turn. All ships, he said, target the Vra'ak, protect the Keshari, and remember who we are. The battle began. The first battle at Kesher Prime lasted 6 hours. It was not a battle by normal standards. It was a slaughter. The Vra'ak had numbers. They had thousands of ships, each controlled by the Overmind, each moving with perfect coordination. They had conquered 47 species. They knew how to fight, but they had never fought humans who were truly angry. Admiral James Chen watched his tactical display as human ships tore through the Vra'ak formations. His Marines fought with a savagery that made the Vra'ak hesitate. For the first time in their long existence, the collective mind felt something new. Not pain, not fear exactly, but confusion. These humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to hurt. A Vra'ak cruiser tried to break through the human lines toward the surface of Kesher Prime. 3 human destroyers rammed it at full speed. The explosion lit up the planet's sky. The cruiser was destroyed. So were the destroyers and everyone on them. But the Kashari below were safe. Sir, we're taking heavy casualties, James's tactical officer reported. We've lost 12 ships in the last hour. I know. Keep them away from the planet. Whatever it takes, the battle raged. Human ships formed a wall of fire and steel around Kesher Prime. The Vra'ak threw themselves against it again and again. Some broke through. Those were met by human Marines who fought in the streets of Keshari cities, defending beings they had never met, dying to protect philosophers who did not even understand warfare. Elder Mother Tusiva stood in the command center of her capital city, watching the destruction above. Keshari around her wept, not for themselves but for the humans who were dying. Why? She asked aloud. We are not worth this. We are a dying species. We have nothing to offer them. Her communications officer, a young Kashari named Shikan, looked up with tears streaming from his eyes. Elder Mother, the human admiral is sending a message. For you specifically. Tusiva took the communication. James Chen's face appeared. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Behind him, she could see crew members working frantically. Alarms were blaring. Elder Mother, he said. My name is James Chen. My grandmother was Captain Maria Chen of the Wandering Hope. Your grandmother saved her life. Saved 50,000 lives. We owe you a debt. You owe us nothing, Tusiva said. Please stop this. Too many are dying. No, James said simply. You don't understand. Humans don't forget. We remember every kindness, every mercy, every moment when someone helped us when they didn't have to. Your people gave us a future. Now we give you one. No matter the cost. The transmission cut off as his ship was hit. Tisiva watched in horror as the human flagship spun, damaged but not destroyed. It kept fighting. For 3 days the battle continued. The Vra kept coming. The humans kept stopping them. The price was terrible. Human ships fell from the sky like broken birds. But not one Vraak vessel reached the Kashari population centers. On the 3rd day, the Vraak made a strategic decision. They could not break the human defense of Kesher Prime. So they moved to the second Keshari world, Kesher Ve. It was less defended. Only a few human ships stood in their way. Those few ships died fighting. The Vraak landed on Kesher Ve and began the consumption. Cities fell. The Kashari people, unprepared for violence, died in their thousands. When news reached the human fleet, something changed. James Chen ordered every ship to begin evacuation procedures. Not retreat. Evacuation of the Kashari. We're going to get them out, he broadcast to his fleet. Every single one. We're bringing them to safety. And then we're going to make the Vraak pay for what they did to Keshar Ve. The other species of the galaxy watched in disbelief as human ships descended into active war zones. They watched as transport ships with no weapons and thin armor landed on Keshar Prime while Vraak forces tried to shoot them down. They watched as human marines formed shields with their own bodies to protect Kashari civilians. They watched as humans died by the thousands to save a species that could offer them nothing in return. This is insanity, the Zorath Chancellor said, watching the feeds. They are destroying themselves for nothing. But the old merchant captain watched and saw something else. No, they are showing us what we forgot, what we lost when we became civilized and practical and smart. They are showing us what it means to have honor. The evacuation took 7 days. 7 days of constant battle. 7 days of human ships pushing through Vraak blockades. 7 days of Marines holding landing zones against impossible odds. 7 days of medics working until they collapsed. And at the end of 7 days, every living Kashari from Keshar Prime had been evacuated. 9 million souls. They were brought to safety behind human lines, taken to human worlds where cities opened their doors and families opened their homes. Elder Mother Tisiva arrived on Earth with the last transport. She was met by the President herself. Tisiva could barely stand. She had not slept in 7 days. Her people were saved, but the cost had been so high. We never wanted this, she said, weeping. We never wanted you to die for us. The President, an old woman named Sarah Okonkwo, the same Sarah who had been ambassador 80 years ago, took Tisiva's hands gently. I know, but you saved us when you didn't have to. You gave everything when we had nothing. That is a debt that goes beyond economics or strategy. That is a debt of the soul. And humans always pay their debts. The debt is paid, Tisiva said desperately. More than paid. Please call your ships back. Don't throw away more lives, Sarah smiled sadly. Oh, Elder Mother. The debt is paid, yes. But now comes something different. Now comes something the galaxy has not seen from humans. Now comes the reckoning. In space near the ruins of Keshar Ve, James Chen stood on the bridge of his reconstructed flagship. Around him, the full might of humanity gathered. Every ship had been recalled. Every weapon had been prepared. The fleet stretched across space, hundreds of thousands of vessels. Military ships, civilian ships converted to war, construction vessels carrying strange weapons, science vessels carrying things that should have stayed theoretical. The Vraak Overmind felt the gathering and sent a message. It was meant to be intimidating. Humans, you have fought well, but you cannot win. We are inevitable. We are eternal. Surrender now and we will consume you quickly. James Chen read the message. He thought of his grandmother's stories. He thought of Kashari giving their last supplies to save strangers. He thought of the thousands of humans who had died in the last 7 days. He thought of Kesher Ve burning below. He sent a reply. 5 words. 5 words that would echo through galactic history. You touch the ones we love. Then he gave an order that had been prepared in secret for 7 days. An order that would show the galaxy what humans became when you hurt their friends. All ships. Begin Operation Broken Sky. Target all Vraak holdings. Show them what mercy gets them. Show them what happens when you prey on the innocent. Show them why you don't make enemies of humans. The fleet moved forward. Not toward Kesharve, toward something else. Toward the heart of the Vraak Dominion itself. In the Galactic Council, alarms began to sound. Sensors picked up the human fleet movements. They were not defending anymore. They were not evacuating. They were hunting. The Mithril observer spoke quietly. They are going to destroy the Vraak. Not defeat them. Not push them back. Destroy them completely. Impossible, the Zorath Chancellor said. The Vraak control 7 hive worlds. They have billions of warriors. Then I suggest you start counting how many will be left when the humans are done. The old merchant captain stood and left the chamber. He had seen enough. He had warned them 80 years ago. He had warned them that saving humans was a mistake. But he had been wrong about what kind of mistake it was. The mistake was not that humans were dangerous. The mistake was thinking they would forget. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, Kesher Prime stood protected. The Keshari people were safe on human worlds. The debt was paid. Now came the fire. The Vraak overmind, ancient and vast, felt the humans coming and prepared for war. It had crushed 47 species. It would crush a 48th. It did not know that humans fought differently when protecting something they loved. It did not know that human rage, when properly focused, could burn hotter than stars. It did not know that there was a difference between defeating an enemy and making sure they could never hurt anyone again. The Vraak overmind was about to learn. And the lesson would be written in fire across 7 worlds. The first hive world was called Vraakar. It was the oldest of the Vraak holdings, home to 3 billion drones and warriors. It had stood for 10,000 years, never falling, never even threatened. The overmind considered it invincible. The human fleet arrived without warning. They did not negotiate. They did not issue ultimatums. They simply began. The first weapons that struck Vraakar were not conventional missiles or energy weapons. They were relativistic kill vehicles, massive chunks of metal accelerated to 99% of the speed of light. When they hit, they released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons, dozens of them, hundreds. The surface of Vraakar lit up like a dying sun. Cities that had stood for millennia vaporized in microseconds. Mountains turned to glass. Oceans boiled away. The Vraak drones on the surface never even knew they were under attack before they ceased to exist. The overmind screamed across the collective consciousness. It was a sound of rage and disbelief. This was not warfare. This was annihilation. Human ships moved through the debris field, firing on anything that moved. They were not trying to conquer Vraakar. They were erasing it. Admiral James Chen stood on his bridge and watched the destruction. He felt no joy, no satisfaction, only a cold necessity. He opened a channel that he knew the Vraak would hear. "This is for the Keshari children who didn't get to grow up," he said. "This is for Kesharve. This is for every species you consumed thinking no one would stop you. We are the consequence. We are the price. And we are just getting started." He closed the channel and looked at his tactical officer. "Next target. Rathul, show them we can do this 7 times. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, Vraakar burned. It would burn for years. The planet was dead, rendered uninhabitable for 10,000 years. 3 billion Vraak were gone, just gone, erased from existence. The overmind, for the first time in its long existence, felt something it did not understand. It was fear. At Vrathul, the second hive world, the Vraak were ready. They had pulled ships from a dozen systems. They had set up defenses. They would not be caught off guard again. The overmind sent a message to the human fleet as it arrived. "You have made your point. We will withdraw from Keshari space. We will leave your species alone. There does not need to be more death." James Chen read the message. He thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then he responded, "You don't understand. This is not about territory. This is not about resources. This is not even about revenge, though you deserve that too. This is about making sure you never hurt anyone like the Keshari again. This is about teaching the galaxy a lesson. When you prey on the weak, when you consume the peaceful, when you touch the species that showed mercy to strangers, humans will come for you. And we will not stop until you cannot hurt anyone ever again." He gave the order. The human fleet attacked. This time the Vraak fought back hard. Their ships swarmed the human vessels. The battle was savage, space filled with debris and fire and dying ships. The Vraak managed to destroy dozens of human vessels. They managed to push back parts of the human fleet, but the humans kept coming. They used weapons the galaxy had only theorized about. Quantum entanglement bombs that made ships collapse into themselves. Weaponized black holes that lasted just long enough to tear apart orbital stations. Biological weapons specifically designed to break the Vrak collective consciousness in specific sectors. The Kritesh Empire watched from a distance, and their generals made notes. The humans were using total warfare. They were using every terrible weapon that civilized species had agreed never to use. They were breaking every rule of engagement. Should we intervene? A Kritesh admiral asked. No, his commander said quietly. Let the humans do what we were all too civilized to do. Let them show the galaxy what happens when you push too far. The battle for Vrathel lasted 2 days. At the end, the planet was cracked open. The human fleet had used tectonic weapons, devices that disrupted the planetary core itself. Vrathel tore itself apart from the inside. Continents shattered. The planet's crust broke into massive fragments that would drift in space for eternity. Another 3 billion Vrak gone. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. They were terrified. Not of the Vrak anymore, of humans. They have to be stopped, the Zorath Chancellor said. This level of destruction, this disregard for the laws of war, they are becoming monsters. Ambassador Sarah Okonkwo stood up. She was old now, but her eyes were hard as steel. Monsters? You want to talk about monsters? The Vrak consumed 47 species. They killed billions. They destroyed cultures that had existed for millennia. Where was the Galactic Council then? Where were your laws of war when the Kashari were dying? That is different, the Chancellor said. How? How is it different? The Kashari are not strategically important. Sarah smiled, and it was not a kind smile. And there it is. The truth. You will only act when it serves you. You will only protect the valuable. The Vrak learned this from you. They learned that the galaxy does not care about the weak or the peaceful or the kind. They learned that might makes right and mercy is weakness. Well, congratulations. Humans learned something too. We learned that we are alone. That when our friends need help, the galaxy will not come. So we will do it ourselves. And we will make sure that things like the Vrak cannot exist. You are destroying entire worlds. Yes, and we will destroy more. Because unlike you, we actually believe that some things are worth fighting for. That some species are worth protecting. That the peaceful should not have to fear the violent. You had your chance to act with mercy. You chose not to. So now we act with justice. And there is a difference. She sat down. The council chamber was silent. The human fleet moved to the third hive world. And the fourth. And the fifth. Each time the same pattern. The Vrak fought desperately. They tried every tactic they knew. They threw everything they had at the human fleet. It was not enough. The humans lost ships. Thousands of them. Millions of human soldiers died. But they kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. Human shipyards were running at levels that should have been impossible. Human civilians were volunteering faster than the military could train them. Every human world was sending everything they had, because this was not just a military operation anymore. This was a crusade. This was humanity showing the galaxy what they were capable of when truly motivated. By the time the fleet reached the 6th hive world, the Vrak overmind was broken. The collective consciousness was fracturing. Entire sections of the hive were going silent. The Vrak, who had thought themselves eternal, invincible, were discovering mortality. The overmind sent one final message. Not to the humans. To the galaxy, we surrender. We beg for mercy. We will leave civilized space forever. We will go into the dark and never return. Please, no more. No more death. The galaxy held its breath. Surely the humans would accept. Surely they had made their point. The Vrak were broken. It was over. James Chen received the message. He looked at it for a long time. Then he called a communication link to Elder Mother Tasiva on Earth. Elder Mother, he said. The Vrak are asking for mercy. They are asking us to stop. What do you think we should do? Tasiva looked at him with ancient sad eyes. I think you should do what you believe is right, Admiral. I cannot tell you what that is. My people do not understand war. We never have. That is why we needed you. If I stop now, they might come back one day. They might hurt someone else. Someone like you, perhaps. Or perhaps they have learned. I do not know. I only know that mercy is what defined my species. And it is what defined yours when you came to save us. Do not lose that in the pursuit of justice. James thought about his grandmother. About the wandering hope dying in the dark. About the Kashari giving everything to save strangers. About Kesherve burning, he made his decision. Pull back the fleet, he ordered. Let the remaining Vrak go, but broadcast this message on all frequencies. He opened a channel that the entire galaxy could hear. Vrak, you are broken but alive. You have 2 remaining hive worlds. You will take your fleets and you will go into dark space beyond the edge of civilized territory. You will never return. If any Vrak ship is ever seen in galactic space again, we will finish what we started, and there will be no mercy next time. We let you live not because you deserve it, but because the Kashari taught us that mercy matters. Remember that. Remember who saved you. Remember that humans could have ended you completely, and chose not to. Tell every species you meet in the dark what happens when you prey upon the merciful. The broadcast ended. The human fleet began the long journey home. Behind them, 5 hive worlds lay in ruins. 2 survived, broken and terrified. The Vryak Dominion, which had conquered 47 species which had been considered unstoppable, fled into the darkness like wounded animals. They would never return. But the galaxy would never forget what humanity had done. For good or ill, everything had changed. The human fleet returned home in silence. They had left as rescuers. They returned as destroyers. 5 hive worlds lay in ruins behind them. Billions of Vrak were dead. The cost to humanity had been terrible. 30% of the human fleet was gone. 3 million soldiers had died. Entire ships had been lost with all hands. But the Kashari were safe. Every single one. Admiral James Chen stood on the bridge of his flagship as Earth came into view. He was exhausted. He had not slept properly in weeks. His uniform was stained with blood and smoke. He looked older than his 45 years. Sir, his communications officer said quietly. We're being hailed. It's the president, James took the call. Sarah Okonkwo appeared on screen. She looked at him for a long moment and he saw tears in her eyes. You did it, she said simply. You brought them home. We lost so many, James said. His voice cracked. 3 million dead. Sarah, we killed billions. We destroyed worlds. What have we become? You became what you needed to be, she said gently. You became the shield for those who cannot protect themselves. You became the answer to the question every peaceful species asks in the dark. Who will protect us when the monsters come? The answer is you. The answer is humanity. And yes, the price was terrible, but the alternative was worse. James closed his eyes. The galaxy is afraid of us now, I know. Let them be afraid. Let them know that mercy has teeth, that kindness has a guardian, that the peaceful are not alone. On Earth, in the great plaza where monuments to the Kashari stood, millions gathered. They gathered to honor the dead, to remember the sacrifice, to see the Kashari who had been saved. Elder Mother Tisiva stood before the crowd. She was old now, ancient even by her species' long lives, but her voice was clear as she spoke. Humans of Earth, people of the stars, I stand before you as the last Elder Mother of the Kashari. My people are few. We are the end of a species that once numbered in the billions. We have accepted this. We made our peace with fading from the galaxy long ago. She paused, looking out at the sea of human faces. But then, we learned something. We learned that mercy does not disappear into the void, that kindness creates echoes that last beyond imagination. 80 years ago, my grandmother saved a ship of humans. She gave them everything we had. She asked for nothing in return. She did it because it was right. Because all life deserves a chance to become what it might be. Her voice grew stronger. You remembered. When the galaxy forgot us, you remembered. When we were dying, you came. When we said goodbye, you said no. You fought for us. You bled for us. You died for us. 3 million of your people gave their lives so that 9 million of mine could live. There are no words in any language for such a debt. She lifted her arms to the sky. You call this place Earth. We call it salvation. You call yourselves humans. We call you the children of mercy who grew into the warriors of justice. And we say to the galaxy, look at what you missed. Look at what you dismissed. Look at what you called dangerous and primitive. These are the ones who will stand when others fall. These are the ones who remember. These are the ones who keep faith. The crowd was silent, tears streaming down faces. I am the last Elder Mother, but I am not the last Kashari. My people will live. Our children will grow up on human worlds. They will learn human languages. They will be part of your civilization. And in 10,000 years, when we are nothing but memory, let the galaxy remember this. The Kashari saved humanity once. And humanity saved the Kashari forever. This is the bond that cannot break. This is the promise that does not fade. Tasiva sat down exhausted. The crowd erupted in applause that shook the ground, but while Earth celebrated, the Galactic Council was meeting an emergency session. The great powers were frightened. Humanity had shown a capacity for destruction that terrified them. 5 worlds destroyed. Thivra'ak, one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, broken and scattered. We must address the human threat, the Zorath Chancellor said. His voice was panicked. They have shown they will use total warfare. They will destroy entire civilizations. They must be contained, quarantined, perhaps even neutralized before they turn on us. Other delegates murmured agreement. The humans were too dangerous, too emotional, too willing to destroy for their ideals. Then the doors of the chamber opened. Elder Mother Tasiva entered, supported by human guards. She had insisted on coming, though the journey had exhausted her. You will listen to me, she said, her voice carrying through the chamber with unexpected force. You who abandoned my people, you who called us irrelevant, you who would not lift a finger to save us. She moved to the center of the chamber. You call them monsters. You call them dangerous. You say they must be controlled. But where were you when the monsters came for us? Where were your fleets when the Vreak descended? Where was your Galactic Council when peaceful beings were dying? The chamber was silent. I will tell you where you were. You were here in your comfortable seats making practical decisions. The Kashari were not strategically important. The Kashari had no resources. The Kashari were not worth saving. You calculated the cost and decided we were not worth it. Her eyes blazed. But humans did not calculate. They remembered. They honored a debt 80 years old. They came when no one else would. And yes, they destroyed. Yes, they showed a terrible face to the galaxy. But they showed it to the right enemy. They showed it to the species that preys on the weak. That consumes the peaceful. That takes advantage of mercy. She turned slowly, looking at each delegate. You want to know why my grandmother saved them? I will tell you. We have a gift, we Kashari. We can see threads of possibility. Not the future exactly, but potential paths. My grandmother saw something in humanity. She saw a species that would never forget kindness, that would never abandon those who showed them mercy. She saw a species that would protect the peaceful even at terrible cost to themselves. Tsiva's voice grew quiet, but somehow more powerful. She knew humanity would become mighty. She knew they would develop terrible weapons. She knew they would be capable of destruction. But she also knew the galaxy would need them, because the galaxy has become too practical, too calculating, too willing to sacrifice the innocent for convenience. The galaxy needed a species that still remembered what honor meant, what loyalty meant, what mercy meant. She looked directly at the Zorath Chancellor. You fear them because they are not like you, because they do not think in terms of strategic value and resources, because they will fight for things that have no practical benefit. But that is exactly why the galaxy needs them. Because sometimes the right thing is not the practical thing. Sometimes mercy is more important than strategy. Sometimes saving the irrelevant is more valuable than any resource. Tasiva turned to leave, then stopped. You want to contain them, quarantine them? Go ahead and try. But know this. Every species that values peace now knows that if monsters come, humanity will answer. Every species that has been dismissed as irrelevant now knows they have a guardian. You may fear the humans, but the peaceful species of the galaxy will love them, and in the end that matters more. She left the chamber. The delegates sat in stunned silence. The old Zorath merchant captain stood up. He had been silent for the entire session. Now he spoke. 80 years ago I warned the Kashari that saving humans was a mistake. I said humans were dangerous. I was right. They are dangerous. Incredibly dangerous. But I was wrong about what kind of mistake it was. The mistake was not the Kashari saving them. The mistake was the rest of us not recognizing what the Kashari saw. That humanity's danger is directional. That their capacity for destruction is matched by their capacity for loyalty. That they are dangerous to the cruel and sanctuary to the kind. He looked around the chamber. We have a choice. We can try to contain them and make them our enemy. Or we can learn from this. We can remember that the practical thing is not always the right thing. That some species are worth protecting regardless of their strategic value. That mercy is not weakness. That the Kashari were right 80 years ago, and humanity was right today. The vote was called. Should humanity be sanctioned? Should they be contained? The result was closer than anyone expected. But in the end, the motion failed. Humanity would not be quarantined. Not because the galaxy was not afraid, but because too many species were now grateful. Too many had seen what happened when someone protected the peaceful. On Earth, in the Plaza of Monuments, a new statue was unveiled. It showed Elder Mother Shivara holding a human child, with Captain Maria Chen standing beside her. The inscription read, "She gave us a future. We gave her people eternity." This is the human way. Mercy for mercy, fire for cruelty. We do not forget. We do not forgive those who prey upon the kind. And we will always come when the peaceful call for help. Years passed. Decades. The Kashari integrated into human society. Their children grew up speaking human languages, learning human customs but keeping their own wisdom and philosophy. They taught humans about patience and art and the long view of history. Humans taught them about passion and loyalty and standing up to bullies. In dark space, beyond the edge of civilized territory, the broken remnants of the Vrak huddled on their two remaining worlds. They told stories to each other, stories of the species that does not forget,